MythBusters wants to know, how did you see the show change as far as gaining an audience for the show as a producer?
The shows got bigger, for sure.
Yeah.
The first few seasons, we could do urban myths and legends.
We ran out of those by season 2, I think.
Yeah. But I actually really liked the small myths that you could do like on a tabletop somewhere.
Yeah.
And then, but of course, we exhausted all those, and then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger until like they're not even myths anymore. They just were replicating certain weird situations.
I'm curious, during your tenure, as other producers came in, if you developed a way to introduce new producers to MythBusters production pipeline, how this was going to work out, what their jobs were.
There wasn't any real technique to that. It's more just they have to come out to set and see what's going on, coming out to location, see how everything comes together. And
and to be clear, each of you producers would take a story as your own.
Mm-hmm.
And you were working on, I don't know, between 2 and 5 at a time sometimes.
Yeah.
But when I say taking it as your own, you would manage the location and the vendors and our relationship with the location. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
That was great, because if the people in charge of the location were fans of the show, and this got easier as we went on, they'd be enthusiastic and totally helpful. In the beginning, it wasn't like that at all. They'd be looking at us like we're insane. Like, what are you trying to do? That doesn't make any sense. Like, what are you getting out of that? Managing a location was one of the funnest things about the job, because you brought everything together, all of your vehicles and supplies and everything, the resources are all brought in, and then everything disappears at the end. And
we had an ethos, a really clear one, that we left the space better than we we arrived.
Yeah. We would often I would find myself picking up garbage that I knew wasn't ours, but we would be blamed for it if it was left there.
I remember in the early days, Linda Wolkovich, both of our colleagues, and we worked with her at ILM as well as MythBusters. Linda was one of our very first associate producers. And I remember early on, she was protective of who talked to the vendor, to the clients, to the locations. And I remember being like, why is she protective? And then I realized it was because other people can only harm your relationship with a place. And frequently on the show, one of the big changes I saw over the years was in later seasons, when we needed to turn on a dime, you guys had access to, I got a swimming pool that I can get us in tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those relationships were mission critical for our abilities to do stories.
And we would do our best to maintain those. Even if we weren't shooting there, we'd check in every once in a while, see how things are going. Yeah.
I love that. MythBusters. Oh, sorry. It's not MythBusters. It's MythDusters.
Oh.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Has a second question. They want to know what it was like to get paperwork and insurance for the actors and camera crew to stay safe. Talk about all the, it's managing the biggest aspects of a shoot, but also all the tiny details.
Yeah. As you've alluded to before, we would have these safety meetings, but not only on location. We would have these giant safety meetings before we would shoot anything, just discussing how is this going to work. And we'd have Nick and Angie on the phone, batting out some ideas, our safety officers, and just make sure that we're tackling this in the way that we should be, and that we have enough eyes on this problem.
I love that, because it started out as a safety procedure, but it ended up being absolutely critical just to get everyone's head in the same space before we went out somewhere and drove around a bunch shooting stuff.
That's right. Yeah. And these would happen in the production office, weeks before we'd start shooting.
One of the things that I tell people when I'm spreading the legend of Eric is that each associate producer had their skills. Like, I really think Linda was like the ultimate location manager in terms of managing those wonderful relationships. Mm-hmm. You were the finder of the impossible things. And my particular one I remember was we were trying to do raising a boat with ping pong balls, and we needed like 20,000 of them. And they were like at 80 cents a piece. They were prohibitively expensive. And you found us Was it 60,000?
Yeah,
Sorry,
or more. Yeah.
Tell me about how you found what you found and where you found them.
There was a Japanese research center that studied avalanches, and so they had all these ping pong balls that they would release into a giant space and just watch the flow of these ping pong balls.
They were color coded, right? So they had layers.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. And when I told them what we wanted to do, they said, "Oh yeah, that sounds cool. I just pay for the shipping to get them over here."
Oh my God. And it ended up being too prohibitively expensive.
It was prohibitive. Yeah.
Putting them in a truck container was also going to cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right.
But I love that we asked for 8,000 and you found us like 75,000. Do you feel, what myth do you feel, Eric, is the defining myth of the show? At what moment did you realize that MythBusters might have become a cultural icon? Wow. By the way, that's Aiden Kohana asks that question.
I think the defining ones probably is Jado rocket car.
Yeah.
Oddly, I never worked on any of the Jado rocket car.
But all the 3 times we did it, you weren't on?
I was always on one of the other shows at that time. But I think that's the classic quintessential urban myth. Yeah. The guy strapping his rocket on.
It really is like the first thing anyone.
Yeah. And so I think that's the one. And we tackled the problem so many times. Oh, Archimedes' death ray too is another.
Did you work on either of those?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, there's another you story that I love, which is we are out. It's the last season. We're up in Oregon. We're filming with the tanker car.
Yeah.
And we're not getting it to implode. For days and days. And it's like 110 degrees. And then Jamie and I are thinking, well, maybe we can damage it and get it to fail by damaging it. And we realized we could drop this concrete bollard on it, but we need a crane. And that's when you came over and said, I just talked to the sheriff whose brother owns a crane. It's across the street. It'll be here in 30 minutes.
That's right. Yeah. I knew that we would need more elevation than we were getting with I think we were trying it first with a forklift, like maximum fork out, and then drop this cement block onto it. And it just wasn't enough. So we needed a crane. And that's when I was like, anyone around here have a crane? And one of the police that we were working with said, I can hook you up.
What's amazing to me is that I was offered a crane before I knew I needed it. That was the best part, is that you were listening to the conversation. You're like,
that's right.
You guys need a crane. I got a crane. And we're like, Eric's got a crane. We know exactly what we're doing.
Yep. Always keep your ears open.
It's one of the things I love about I don't know if you watched the show The Bear, about restaurants.
That's right. Yeah.
One of the things I love that I didn't realize is the degree to which the staff wants to listen to the patrons to make their experience better. And that's you were doing amazing producing there. I keep telling you, you're the finder of lost things. Is there anything that you weren't able to obtain? Is there something? There's a white whale out there that you were calling around and couldn't get to?
None is coming to mind, but I do have a myth that I tried to do, but I was always blocked.
Oh.
Evel Knievel jump across
Snake
Canyon. Yeah, steam-powered jet cycle. He always maintained that the chute deployed too early, and that's what caused him to fail. But just Discovery didn't want to do it.
I think we pitched it a couple of times, and at one point we pitched it as a live show.
Oh, wow.
They wanted to do something where we'd shoot an episode, but the finale would air live on air. And that was one of our top contenders
that's a
for
great
that.
idea. Yeah.
It was expensive. Like,
would have been worth it, though.
I totally agree. And you and I grew up with Evel Knievel and Evel Knievel dolls, that little motorcycle helmet. Vicky Bligh wants to know, she's a regular question asker here among the tested folks. How did you keep the blueprints so consistent? They looked like they were drawn all at the same time.
Wow. Oh, that's cool. That's just my style. Like my style comes across, I guess. It means that I can't draw any other way. It's me.
We will, by the way, include links to Eric's work and various parts of his work that you can purchase in the description. We got a last question here from Don't Give a Fet. What was your favorite one-line wonder from MythBusters? Oh, that's the same of both you and Dan. Do you have a favorite line?
I have a couple. I really like the time, I think it was for when the tractor trailers were smashed together, and I think you said, "Here comes chaos." That was pretty funny. But also, I kind of like I substitute your reality, or I reject your reality and substitute my own. If I'm not mistaken, that's from Metalstorm: The Destruction of Jared's Sin, a 1983 sci-fi movie.
I think it's from a movie called Dungeon Master.
Oh,
that's what I've always
Dungeon
been
Master.
told.
Okay, yeah. Around the same time.
Yeah, it is right around the time of like Space Hunters, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone in 3D.
It was a golden age.
Dude, it's such a pleasure to see you and again. Talk about the days. And thanks so much for talking about it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for supporting us by watching this channel. You can support us at an even deeper level by heading over to tested-store.com and picking up one of our tested embroidered baseball caps. We got your normal baseball cap, we got your Flex Fits, and we got Flex Fit truckers. And we are just starting to play around with lots of new designs, so check back regularly. Thanks.